Let me see. So, and we are live. So YouTube already says we are live. So we have to do a little bit of an audio check before, because we are now not in the studio, but we're at our home. So as soon as Anneweek tells me that the audio is okay, that's when we actually gonna start our seminar for today. And today it's a seminar for our friends from PhotoWhoa. Now you might wonder, what is PhotoWhoa? Is it a photo that's really wow? No, of course not. PhotoWhoa is a company that actually distributes and sells to you guys really great videos, plugins, software, and whatnot more against a really cool price. And they also have a subscription, so you get all the new software and everything. So check them out online at PhotoWhoa. We will leave a link in the descriptions, of course, so don't worry about it. So I'm going to check with Anneweek if our audio is okay, so we don't have any weird stuff going on. Anneweek, is the audio okay? Anneweek? I don't think Anneweek is there, somehow. Oh, Anneweek now tells that the audio is okay. So, okay, there's a little bit of a delay. So before I thought that Anneweek had a heart attack, just relax. Okay. So today, the webinar for PhotoWhoa. Now, as you guys know, probably, I'm a fashion photographer and I'm specialized in teaching workshops, but my real passion is in telling stories. Now, when you look at what is photography, photography is actually freezing unique moments in time that never come back again. And that's, for example, for press photography or, for example, sports photography. But how is that with model photography? Because that's what I mainly do. It's actually exactly the same, because when you think about model photography, you can go two directions. The first thing is, of course, I can make a picture of somebody's character. So if you have to shoot me, maybe something with a camera, the fender cap, and maybe a guitar or whatever, but that's what I like, right? But I can also be shot differently. For example, I can be really strong and you can give me a cape, maybe I'm a superhero, or maybe you can give me bigger glasses and a book and I'm a nerd, depending on how I look. So with model photography you can go many different ways, and that's what fascinates me over the years more and more and more. There's so much possible. So today what we're going to do, we have over 200 slides. We're going to go through them really fast because we only have an hour. And we are gonna do something really cool. So today it's all about bringing that little bit of magic into your shots. So let's go for our picture in picture and let's start. Now the first thing, of course, I want to ask you guys is please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also go to our frankdoorhof.com website. We have just released a brand new web store, and we recently got the distributorship for ClickPro backdrops in our web store. So check them out. They have a signature series backdrops. They're really awesome, and there's coming a lot more. So check out the website. And of course our YouTube channel, we're very active, and thanks to our friends from PhotoWhoa, of course, you can get all our instructional videos via them. And I have a brand new book out very soon, The Magic of the Speedlight, that will also be available via PhotoWhoa. Wow, right? They're awesome. So anyway, so today, the magic of putting something into your photography. Let's just start. It's gonna be fun. So what is photography? Well, photography for me, because photography is something different for everybody. If I talk to my parents, what is photography for you? They will probably just pick up their phone and they will go like, Frank, just open up the phone. I forgot to put it on silent, so I just incorporate it into the workshop. So now it's on silent. So they will pick up their phone and they will just make a picture. And by the way, I want to give you one very quick tip. It's not actually in this workshop, but I still want to tell you guys. So when you are with travel and street photography, right, it's always cool to take pictures of people, right? But what if you're a little bit afraid? So you don't want to point the camera towards somebody because, well, they see that you shoot them, right? I invented the inverse selfie. So what you do is you just do it like this. You can even get closer to people. You see that? That's called the inverse selfie. Now, why do I tell you guys that during Bring the Magic in? Well, very simple. If you want to really bring the magic into your shot, you have to make sure that your sitter, or in other words your model, is totally at ease. And this can be a CEO, it can be a model, it can be anybody, but they have to be at ease. And then you can start telling a story. So let's start. So what is photography for me? Now, one of my friends is VB Suryadi. He's a really good piano player, worldwide, world famous. And I was always very nervous to shoot him because, well, he's so famous and I was just a photographer at that time. Over the years we've become very close friends, but when I started out, and I think you guys know this, if you can shoot somebody that's really famous and that's on a stage and you go like, ooh, that's dangerous, right? You have those butterflies in your stomach. And I found out that although I had those butterflies in my stomach, I could still take pictures, but the pictures weren't there yet. So let me show you what happened. This is one of the first concerts we did for him. And I'm here with his parents in the booth on the top of the Concertgebouw. It's not really interesting, right? You see the Concertgebouw, and you see a very, very tiny Wiebe. Now, Wiebe is not really big or tall, but still, he's very, very small. But still, this picture tells a story. Big crowds, small piano player. But it's not interesting. So let's go. So you can come a little bit closer and shoot him from behind. Now I have the whole crowd there and I have the artist there. But it still doesn't do anything for me. I'm still looking at this image and I go like, yeah, maybe. So let's go a little bit deeper. Oh, wait a minute. Is that supposed to be in here? Yes, it's supposed to be in here. Now, I always start the seminar, by the way, with these shots because these are really important. So if you already saw this, don't worry. The rest of the seminar is totally different. So what's happening here? Is he enjoying the music? Is he falling asleep? Or did he die? Or maybe he was killed. You don't know, right? And that's storytelling in photography. I think it's very important that we all realize that we make our own stories. If we look at something, it's our mind that creates it. Look at the sky. I see Star Trek Enterprise or I see a guitar. And a week see something totally different. And that's because our mind has to build something. And that's what you can do as a photographer. Let the viewer be mesmerized. Let the viewer be in magic. Now, of course, we want to go a little bit closer. And at this point, I already got pictures that nobody got. For the very simple reason, you can't get that close. So we became closer with Wiebe. And at one point, I said, you know what? I want some really spectacular shots. He was going like, yeah, me too. Come on stage. Yeah, well, you guys might not think it, but I'm a really, really shy guy. And as soon as you see me on stage, I'm trying to be as small as possible, and I'm almost 2 meters long, so nah, and 2 meters wide, whatever. But it's really difficult for me to be really small. But I am still in my heart very, very careful. I don't want to be there. So it really, really was terrifying for me to be there. But look at the pictures you can get. This is so different because this is an angle that nobody can do. And then you get great images. And because Wiebe is a lot smaller than me, I will just stand up and put the camera there with a little bit of a wide angle. Now, I do exactly the same thing as that first shot. You see that? You have the stage, you have the piano player, you have the audience, and you have the Concertgebouw. But I'm doing it from another angle. And angles in photography is everything. If you choose the right angle, if you choose everything right, your image will just rock. It will be a photo wow, without any doubt. Okay, so let's look at the evolution of the photographer. Also, this is something I do in all my seminars because it's so important for you guys to realize this. Shoot on P, that's the first thing we do. It's not professional, it's not panic, it's the P mode. Everything works. So you take a picture and it looks great. Nothing wrong. It's not exciting to do, but it works, so why not? Then you're gonna start shooting on AV mode. Audio video? No. Aperture priority. You determine the depth of field and you shoot, and the shutter speed is calculated. Okay, getting a little bit more interesting. And then you have to shoot on manual because, well, you know, when you're at a photo club, people will go like, you're shooting on AV or P, you're an amateur, you have to shoot manual. Yeah, and then you walk on the street and you miss images because, well, you go from dark to light. And then of course you also have to shoot in primes. Why a prime? Because it's sharper. Yeah, but if you're on the street, it doesn't really work a prime and manual. You have to be fast on your feet. You have to capture that unique moment in time because it never comes back again. And you don't have time to switch lenses. So I always tell, you know what? The only thing the photographer has to think about is get the shot. I'm shooting auto ISO on the streets. I don't care. I determine my shutter speed, maximum shutter speed, minimum shutter speed. Sorry, minimum. And I determine my aperture, and that's it. And the rest the camera does itself. So it's a sort of, let me put it this way, between us, it's the professional P mode. Don't tell anybody about that, but it's the real professional P mode. Auto ISO, determine the minimum shutter speed for your action, and of course your aperture. So in essence, I'm doing everything manual. Only the camera does the manual part. So I know what I want. I know how to freeze a model. I know what depth of field I want, but the rest I don't want to be bothered with. Let the camera figure it out. With P, There's a difference. The camera does everything. Shutter speed, depth of field. For me, that's a little bit too much that the camera does. So auto ISO, perfect. Get the shot. And that's when something like this happens. So you start doing photography, you go up, you go down, you go up, and then at one point you go up like a rocket. Why? Very simple. You don't care about the technique anymore. You don't care about the prime that has 1.7 millimeters, whatever. The only thing you care about is getting that shot. And that's when you start to get real good images. So let's start. Being creative and solving your problems on set or on location. Now, one of the first things is inspiration. What I absolutely love is that really old-fashioned photography. We recently released a video, and it's also on PhotoWhoa, called Glamour Light of the Old Masters. Look at those images from, for example, George Hurrell, Harcourt. It's amazing what they did with so little technique. For the very simple reason, they didn't have Photoshop at that time. They had the darkroom, right? They didn't have all that stuff that we have now. They shot with cameras on film. Did they have a preview? Yeah, Polaroid. But Polaroid was totally different from the film. So, yeah, they were real masters. Because when you mess something like this up, you don't have a chance to do it again. For the very simple reason, it took them 2 or 3 days to develop the film. And maybe you can push it a little bit in the darkroom. But with stuff like this, I shoot film. No, this doesn't work on slides. Maybe on on black and white, it might work that you can push it a little bit more. But then you have to be very consistent over the whole roll of film. So those guys really knew how to shoot. And they used harsh lights, as you can see here. Dark shadows, nice highlights. Really difficult technique, but I love it. So this is for me inspiration. Great shots. All the shots, by the way, you're going to see today are all by me. So I'm not using other photographers' work. So this is the stuff that I really shoot. And add a little bit of color. It is very classic, but by adding a little bit of color, you go a little bit more from that old photography into the new. And that's something that I really want to tell you guys. Combine your knowledge from old-fashioned stuff into the new stuff. And you can mix that together. I'm doing it all the time. But also comics and movies. Think about it. If you look at a movie, what is the first thing that you feel? I want popcorn. Yeah, that's the wrong movie. The first thing you feel is you're being transported to that other world. Think about Star Wars. Feel the Force, Luke, right? We all know that. Why do we know that? If I tell you guys like, they're here, what's the first thing you think about? Poltergeist. That movie's from the 80s. How the heck do you guys still know that term? Because it made such an impression on you guys. When you hear this theme song from Jaws, do you know it's from Jaws? Yes, you do. But if you hear the theme song from, let's say, I don't even know what movie, but just give it one movie and you'd forget it. So there has to be an impact. And with movies, it's a combination of the imagery, the story, but don't think about that the music doesn't care. Because it's so important to get everything together. Now with photography, we don't have music, we don't have motion. So we have to do it with a still image. Now trust me, doing stuff with a still image might be way easier than doing it with motion. So let's see how we can do this. For me, inspiration comes from comics and movies. Look at this. This is not a fashion shot. This is a vampire that is laying on the floor and just screaming out. I don't know why we did this. We just had fun. But it's heavily inspired by horror movies. Universal Monsters, Bride of Frankenstein. Or how about a real vampire killer, right? And do you see that expression? Do you see that there's a little bit of motion in there, although you don't see it? That expression that just pulls you in and goes like, wow, I really like this. That's that little part of magic. So that's the part that I'm talking about. That little extra sniff of magic that you put in. So how did I do it here? Well, I have to be honest with you guys. When we started this photo shoot out, they were just standing next to each other like, look at our costumes, cool, right? And I was going like, yeah. So I took some shots and I was going like, yeah, it looks great. But now, they were going, what now? And I said, you're a vampire, you're Van Helsing, kill each other. Kill each other? I said, yeah, let's go outside, let's take up a stick. You see that the stick isn't really a stick, we just took it from outside. And I said, now, lay on the floor. And you get on top and just stake her, but scream like you mean it. The first time, they were going like, nah, that doesn't work. And at that point, you have to do something that I hate to do. I did it myself. So I was going like, okay, don't do it like this, but go like, wah, go really big and open up your mouth and just scream like crazy. I felt very, very ashamed to do it. But you know what? It worked. At first they started to laugh, like, oh yeah, really? I said, do it. They did it, they saw the pictures. Trust me, this picture is way more than the one they did after that, because they went all out. And at one point, they were just jumping up and down. Who can I stake? Who can I stake? That's the thing that you want in your photo shoot. That your models really feel what's going on and start to act like it. At that point, they were the vampire in Van Helsing. And that's when you start to get that magic in your shots. Inspiration from movies. You know the movie? Let me hear. Yep, The Ring. I don't hear anybody, but it sounds nice. Again, The Ring. And do you also see that it's really dark in the pictures? Same thing with the movie. Really dark. So keep that also in your shots. That's the mood. Also the blue from the TV set, right? We always have that blue hue in the TV. So everything works together in the shot. A little bit of smoke on the back. You can still see the TV a little bit on the back with that little noise pattern. It all works in the shot. If I took everything out and just photographed the model with a softbox, let me put it this way, it wouldn't be a photo wow, it would be a photo meh. And we don't go for photo meh, we go for photo wow, right? So we want to make sure that everything fits together and you're really mesmerized by what you see. Okay, same here. Harsh backlight. You don't even see the model. I don't even I know which the model is, by the way. You wouldn't even remember the model because you can't recognize her. But it's the story that's there. And this is also something I find important. If you want to put that magic in your shots, make sure that you find the right models. Not all models are willing to do this. Some models go like, no, I want to have my hair nice on the picture. I want to have my nails done and I want to look beautiful. I don't care about beautiful. You know what I care about? Stories. I want to have a model that goes like, okay, so how can I make it as ugly as possible that it works for the shot? And that's the part where you start to put that magic in. I see so many people that are just beautiful and they stand against a beautiful backdrop and it's just boring. So don't make it boring, make it interesting, but you have to find the right model for it. They're not all up for it. Often cosplayers, by the way, they're great models for this kind of stuff. So I get a lot of my inspirations from movies, from horror, from comics, and also here. Now, it might look like just a standard shot, but do you see that there's a little bit of a reflection on the bottom? It's actually called a Lens Baby Omni system, where we actually gave a little bit of that reflection there, and I just love that in a shot. Same here, very, very creepy, but we love it. And red, think about a vampire, think about red, right? It has to be in there. So we are using a lot of stuff with mood. Now when you look at this, it looks like the apocalypse where somebody's laying on the floor, the zombies are grabbing up their hands. In all honesty, this was shot during a workshop with our two models. And on the floor, they're actually our students from the workshop. We just lay them on the floor and just grab your hands on. And it's so easy to do, but it's so much fun, guys. And that's it. As soon as you start having fun in your photo shoot, that's also part of the magic. Let's say that's already the M and the A. And the jig, that has to come later. Okay, same here. And these are just some chairs from our studio. Do you see how we play with that kind of stuff? Although at the moment it's maybe not wise to do more of the aggressive kind of stuff, seeing the whole situation in the world, but hey, they're part of the seminar, so don't flame me for that. Same here, you can hardly see what's going on, but it's still that, you keep looking at the picture like, oh, what's going on? Oh, that looks interesting. And that's what you have to do. Make sure that people start to wonder. People start to look at your image and go like, what the heck's going on there? That works. Okay, same here. A little bit of weird shot, right? They cut off the head, so maybe you have to look 3 or 4 times. You see the scissors, you see the head missing, you see the black rose. You keep looking at the picture, and every time you start to recognize something new. That's the G, so we're already at MG. I'm just kidding with you guys. Same here. Let's go a little bit faster, because these are just example shots. And as you see, we use a lot of cosplay. And those models are just absolutely amazing. But you can see the inspiration. They come from movies, they come from comics. They're over the top bizarre sometimes, and sometimes just in space. Or maybe a little bit more like mythology, magic, And of course, again, a little bit like a fighter. Or maybe from the 50s. This was inspired by those really old science fiction movies. Now, in this workshop, we actually asked all our students bring bring carton bags and paper bags, sorry. And they brought it in, and we had some welder's glasses, and Nadine was just throwing everything together. We got some gas masks on, and we put some smoke in there, one light behind her, and I was going like, oh, it looks like you're coming straight out of a UFO. I love it. Make it black and white, and you have one of those movies like, it came from out of space. And at that point, you already are mesmerizing your viewer, like, what the heck's going on there? And maybe, and that's the cool part, maybe you see something completely different. You go like, Frank, that's absolutely not from the 50s sci-fi. I see something very modern. Great, because that's exactly what you as a photographer want. If you force your story up to somebody, it might very well be that they don't like the image anymore. Think about Blade Runner. Some people love the fact that he's a robot. Other people hate the fact that he's a robot. Maybe you watched the movie and you didn't realize that and you loved it. And then somebody tells you and you go like, I don't like that at all. And the whole movie just sucks after that. Sometimes it's best to let somebody look at your image and they go like, oh, I love that it looks like a 50s horror movie. And you go like, thank you. Don't go like, no, no, it's like an 80s. Because at that point somebody will go like, an 80s? No, it looks like, and you get into a conflict and they start looking at your work differently. But if somebody's over the moon, oh, it looks like a 50s horror movie. Thank you so very much, awesome. And you just go in your mind like, oh, I can do that too. Right? Very, very simple. Comics, right? Thor. And a little bit of magic with the smoke and backlighting. It's all part of the moods. But how do you get images like this? How do you go from 0 to hero? Well, you have to be a little bit crazy for that, right? So let's see how we do it. And as you can see here, we got a lot of inspiration from comics with backlighting, movie-like sets. Sometimes the strobe doesn't fire and you get something like this. Or sometimes you have a model that's totally out of it. And sometimes you do something yourself. I'm a big Batman fan, so this was absolutely one of our ideas. And outside in the tulips. So let's go. I'll just show you some images, and then we're going to talk about how to create them. One of the first things is accessories and props. Now, accessories and props means that you put something in your set to create something like a mood, but also to give the model something. Like for example, if you have a model that can only pose like this, I have them, it's terrible. So you ask them like, okay, can you put your hand on your shoulder? So I'm doing it now, right? This is a it's not a normal look, but you know what I mean, right? But if you have a model and they go like, they look like this, the camera doesn't go lower, sorry. So it looks like this, pretty natural. And then as soon as you say, okay, I'm going to take the picture, boom, they go like, no, relax those fingers. They are relaxed. No, they're not. And then you take away your camera and you immediately see this. They go like, okay, now I squeak in that camera. No, there they go again. Sometimes models, without their knowing it, they tense up. You will never get the magic in your shot if your model tenses up. Your model has to be relaxed. And this is where accessories and props can come in really handy, because you can give them something to do. And it doesn't have to be expensive. For example, you can use a cup and saucer. Toilet paper, do make sure it's new. Plastic, this was one of the ideas from Nadine. This was actually shot on the stage of professional imaging. And this year there is a new professional imaging, of course, in the Netherlands. So make sure you check it out if you're in the Netherlands. It's awesome. And this was those plastic covers you see on all the, how do you call it, tables. Your grandma or your parents probably have them. They have these beautiful tables. And they destroy those tables by putting the thick plastic covers over it. We took it, we cut it up. Nadine used a blowtorch on, imagine this, on a live stage. And she created this. And you will see a lot more from these images. It looks absolutely stunning. The only thing is you can't do it twice. Well, you can do it twice, but you can never do it the same because it melts. And that creates something interesting. This was actually at the start of the shoot. Later on it gets way more interesting. Look at this. This is Nadine herself with that same outfit, but now even more melted. And as you can see, it looks almost like, how do you call it? Oh, sorry guys. Like ice. Now I just drew a blank. You know, ice pegels, whatever, you know what I mean. When water drops down and it freezes. Forget about it. So, also, what a lot of people use is smoke. Smoke is absolutely awesome. However, there has to be something in there for me. So in this case, the only thing we used was a chandelier. You can buy them on flea markets or online for maybe 10, 20 euros. They're not that expensive. And the cool thing is you can even take the crystals out and use them to shoot through. Do make sure you use a wide aperture because otherwise you don't see anything and it just looks like crap. So 1.8, 2.0, 2.8, okay. F4, it's already not going to work. F5.6, forget about it. So those crystals shoot through, maybe a few, hold them in front of your model, use them to break light. There's so much you can do with the chandelier for 25 euros, but in this case we just included them in the shot. But do you see that the lights are also on? How the heck do I do that? Very simple. I'm just going to give you that tip right away. We're going to mix strobes with ambient light. And there's a little mnemonic I use for that. I hope that's the correct term. In Dutch it's called an ezelsbrug, but that doesn't translate very well in English because then it's called a donkey bridge. And I don't know what I just said. I hope it's not something X-rated. But what we do with that mnemonic is actually, I tell people, always remember that the aperture is fixed. That's for your model, that's the strobe. However, the shutter speed, the longer you leave it open, the more of the ambient light comes in. So in this case, we're using one strobe behind the model, one strobe on the model, and our light bulbs. The only thing I do is I change the shutter speed lower to get more of those light bulbs, or faster to get less of those light bulbs in. The strobes, they all act exactly the same. So that's how we combine that. Now don't start out with your strobes on f16. That doesn't work. Preferably, if your strobes can go down that far, let's say ISO 400 2.8, that's a great starting point for working with ambient light sources in your shot. Now, I might wonder, Frank, my strobes don't go down that far. Take off a white shirt, put it in front of your strobes, make sure your modeling light is off, and it will take away a lot of your light. And at that point you can lower your strobes. If you are afraid of that, just don't flash. Use the modeling lights of your strobes. They're also continuous lighting. And then you can combine everything nicely with your output of your strobes. Or buy LED panels or whatever. But you can combine many, many different ways. There is not one solution. There are many solutions. Same here. Plastic wrapping paper. Just put some strobes behind it, one strobe on our model, and you get something really cool for 10 euros max. We all know these, right? Bubble wrap. Oops. Bubble wrap. Absolutely amazing to play with after the shoot, but also great to build a dress from for your model. And if you change the lighting, it can even be very, very nice because it's white. So it really reflects the light, you get a beautiful reflection on your model, and it just works like a charm. This, the day after, we used to wrap up packages. Don't worry, we didn't send it to you, but we cleaned everything, of course. But as you can see here, you can use so much stuff, even throwaway stuff. You can use it in your photo shoots. It doesn't have to be expensive. And remember, we're Dutch, right? We don't want to spend a lot of money. Old seamless paper, don't throw it out. All those creases can be really cool to shoot against. Or close in and see all that paper on the back? That's actually just normal drawing paper that you use for kids. And we just cut it up, or in this case Nadine did all the work, and she cut it up into leaves. So it doesn't have to be expensive. You can even bring hats. Like in this case, we asked all the students bring hats, and Nadine has a vintage store. She got a lot of hats. And we just created something out of it. Now this is something you probably can't recreate at home for the very simple reason it's, well, a lot of work and it's expensive to get that many hats, but hey, overall works like a charm if you can borrow it. Okay, here the same thing. It's the accessory that does it. Without that sign, this way up, I don't get that feeling of Alice in Wonderland. With that sign in, I really like it. Masks. If you have a model and she has a really bad skin, masks work like a charm, but not only with bad skin. It takes away part of the expression. Now in this case it takes away almost the face, but you still see the mouth and the eyes. But you also have masks that covers everything, and then you have to focus on how the model poses, how the eyes are. Masks are an amazing tool to start learning how to draw the expression out of your model without seeing the face. I can't express how important it is to do at least one shot with masks. You will learn so much from that because it's so difficult to get something interesting. Play with shadows, the mouth, just a little bit of light on the sides. I really like that. Combine it with colors. Masks are awesome. Hey, but we also have a hobby, right? I love playing guitar. I love comics. So why not incorporate something that you already have from your hobby into your photo shoot? For example, in my case, guitars or a microphone. And of course, when you have a special guitar, like for example the Jam, this is really green stuff. Well, when you look at the real one, let me just pick it up very quickly. It isn't really that green, but it is that green. Do you see it? So in essence, I didn't really change the shot a lot. I didn't enhance the greens a lot, but I did enhance it a little bit, but mostly by using very high contrast lighting. So the black almost disappears, and at that point that green really jumps out. Just underexpose the greens a little bit and it gets more saturated. And it really jumps out. And you have something that your model can hold. So props really, really work. Let's go to some images where we use props that we already have. In this case, a guitar pedal. One of our click prop backdrops with a beautiful guitar and model in front. And this is also something that you have to realize. We all know seamless backdrops, right? Paper. They're awesome. We also know Muslims. Those are a little bit more like the painted Muslims. And they look great. I hope I pronounced it correct, by the way. If I don't be offended by it. I really mean the canvas-like structures. But in all honesty, I like backdrops where I can use it in different ways, but also where the backdrop doesn't compete with the model, but just a little bit, like sneaky. I like sneaky backdrops. I like backdrops, maybe that's a name for a new brand, the sneaky backdrops. The backdrops that look like a backdrop, but they're actually going like, hello, I'm here. And somehow, when you put those two together and you really put the focus on the model, but you start to incorporate it with the backdrop, like you see here, this is one of my favorite Click Pro backdrops. Everything just works together, but don't put a model in front of this with a beautiful dress, because then maybe it would work, but somehow I think this needs to be a little bit more edgy, as you can see here. Sunglasses. Maybe your model went to bed really late and got those bags under her eyes, or maybe she is outside in the sun and you see the sun shining right into her face and she goes like, oh, I can't see anything, open up your eyes, okay, there we go. It doesn't really look nice, so what do? You give them sunglasses. They look freaking cool, even in the studio. Look at this, it's awesome, right? Now you might wonder, Frank, how do you do it that there's no reflection in the sunglasses? I have to be honest, we do a lot of work for also people that sell glasses in the past. The angle of incidence is the angle of reflection. So if I'm using glasses and I'm now looking straight at my lights, you see this? The Lume Cube lights are actually in my glasses. But we set it up so that the angle of incidence is not the angle of reflection for that camera. As soon as I do this, you see the reflection. If I do this, no. And I can go all the way up till there. So we figured that out at one point, like, okay, let's set it up like this. And you can do the same thing in your photography. Just make sure that when you shoot the image, you're not shooting from the same angle that the light is hitting it. You see that angle of incidence is angle of reflection, or the other way around. I don't know. Okay, let's go for lighting. Chandeliers. The only light source used in these images are actually the light source that you see. So we didn't use strobes, we didn't use reflection. We did use a little bit of side light sometimes, but that's actually our studio lighting. So imagine that we have these really tiny LED lights in the studio that normally don't register at all, not even on video. But in this case, because we're using longer shutter speeds, they just gave a little bit of side light. And at first I want to take it out, and then I looked at it going like, ooh, I really like it, just leave it in. Happy accidents. Only the light bulb, nothing more. Can you go cheaper without light? But the light bulb, come on. Do make sure that you get a 100 watt light bulb, because they emit a lot of light. Don't go for the 25 watts. And somehow I didn't find a LED light bulb yet that I like. We're still testing a few. These are still the old light bulbs, so they're not very environmental friendly. On the other hand, hey, we only do it like once every so. Okay. Icicle. That was it, the icicle. Yeah, thanks. Okay, here I'm using actually a very, very reflective backdrop. This is our red backdrop. Funny story. This is the backdrop that was actually the start of my signature series with Click Prop backdrops, and it's called the Opulent Red. Now, that backdrop reflects like crazy. And we feel very, very bad about the backdrop because I never use it. Well, I use it a lot actually. In a lot of shots you see this backdrop, but it's never the original. Angle of incidence is angle of reflections, and we really messed up with this one. I gave an intern this assignment. Okay, we have this beautiful backdrop, paint it red and make some nice stuff in it. She went to our do-it-yourself store and she got some paints. She started doing it. I looked at it and I was going, ooh, that looks awesome. I love that backdrop. Got out my strobes. Whatever I did, there was always a huge reflection. She got the really shiny paint. So when I needed to do my signature backdrop series, I actually photographed it under a really weird angle. With a high resolution camera, I believe I used it something like 100 megapixels for that, the medium format. We shot it under a very, very strange angle, and then in Photoshop we just tilted it up and the reflection was gone. And now, it sounds so weird, we have the original backdrop that we never use, and we always use the one from ClickPro Backdrops because it was mirrored after that. And I just love how it looks. But here you can see, in this case, I love the reflection. So it's not always wrong. Sometimes the reflection is right and great, and sometimes you go like, ooh, this is really, really bad. Chandelier. Now look at the back. You see two walls standing like this? Those are two studio walls we have in our studio that we can actually move around with wheels. You're going to see those a little bit more later. Remember what I told you about chandeliers? Shooting through them with the crystals? There you go. And here you see, these are just images. We're just going to go through them that you can see what light does, because this is no strobe. And one of the most heard things about photography is actually that people go like, yeah, Frank, I really like your shots, but it's not fair. And I go like, what's not fair? Well, you have all this expensive gear, expensive camera, expensive lighting. And that's the point where I actually started like, I'm so fed up with that question that, you know what, we're going to do a workshop called alternative lighting. Also on PhotoWhoa we have a video called alternative, oof, that's a tongue breaker for us, alternative lighting. What I do in that video is I'm not using strobes, I'm only using Christmas lighting, flashlights, lume cubes, tubes, whatever I could get my hands on that was cheap. We used it. Lume cubes are not really cheap, but they're really small, so I wanted to throw them in too. We're even using the smartphone flash. It works, and that's the thing, guys. Don't think about limitations, only think about what you can do. I'm teaching workshops for way over 15 or maybe even 20 years, I don't even remember. I'm teaching workshops for a long time. I never heard somebody go like, oh, I can't take that shot because I'm not creative. That would be awesome, because that's the truth. I always hear, yeah, I can't take that shot because my camera doesn't focus. Oh, I can't take that shot because. There's always a because. Stop with the because. Look at an image. If I can do it, you can do it. For the very simple reason, I'm not using any Photoshop or Lightroom for experimental stuff. No, I'm using Lightroom and Photoshop with my preset pack, and that's it. At the moment even, I'm using a whole workflow in Luminar. Luminar AE, absolutely amazing software. We switched over almost 100%. We use it inside of Lightroom, so Lightroom is my main hub. And then we go straight into Luminar AI, and what we do is we use the artificial intelligence to do the skin retouching. Always, I've used filters for that, or I did it by hand, but by hand just takes way too long, so I use a filter. With all the filters, I had to paint the filter in, take it out of the eyes, take it out of the nose holes, because that's where you don't want it, because it looks fake, take it out of the mouth, take it out of the hairs, and that's it. With AI nowadays, artificial intelligence, Luminar actually, they nailed it. They literally nailed it. I was very reluctant to use it in a workflow, because they use workflow, so you go from top to bottom and you go through all these filters. It's an awesome software. And there is this one part, AE Skin. And the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, yeah, that's for my mom and my dad, or maybe Anna Week, but I'm not going to use that. Started playing with it, and I really looked great, really careful at those shots. I can't find anything wrong. The eyes stay razor sharp. The mouth stays razor sharp. Everything, the nose holes, no softening there. And the skin looks amazing. So now, there's one click. I have my image, I just go through my presets, I click, and everything is done. So don't tell me you can't do the stuff that I can, because I click one button. That's it. Nothing difficult. Same here. I just love chandeliers. And we have them in many different sizes, but I also love light bulbs. They have something magical. The only thing about light bulbs is you have to make sure that there's distance. Now there's something called the inverse square law. Light falls off over the distance. Make absolutely sure that when you do something like this, you place the light bulbs really close to the model. Not too close because they get freakingly hot. Get them a little bit away. But let me put it this way, not here. Really here. So they have to feel that it's hot. The reason is when they are really close to the model, you get this beautiful light fall off. So even that really nasty harsh light bulb that we never like for lighting can be awesome if you place it really close to the model. Don't put it far away, that's terrible. Same here, a lot of play with lights. Even behind a fake window. We bought this a few years ago, like a window from an old store. And we just have it in our studio, and sometimes we pick it up, we place some lights behind it, a model behind it, and we have the intention of, hey, maybe she's looking through a window in the attic or whatever. And you can create so much fun with that. But the lighting here is just Christmas lighting. See how easy it is? Don't worry about noise, by the way. Look at this shot. This was shot, I believe, at ISO 64000, because the only light is the candle. And I'm going to tell you something, and you may or may not believe this. If somebody points out to you, I like the shot, but way too noisy, they don't like the shot. If somebody goes to you and they go like, ooh, there's a lot of noise in that shot, you messed up. Everybody that sees a shot that's awesome, they won't even look at the noise. Because noise, they only see the noise when they are not mesmerized by that image. So when I look at an image like this, I go like, ooh, I like it. I don't care about the noise, but if it was slightly different with styling, let's say she was wearing jeans and a tank top, you have to be a lighting wizard to create something interesting. And even if you create something interesting, it doesn't mesmerize me. It doesn't have the magic in there. With a shot like this, with all the styling, with the model, I don't like the little thing over here with the shadow, but I didn't want to clone it out because, hey, I made a mistake. Just leave it in. Maybe it's also natural, right? But the expression of the model, the hair over here, everything was so perfect in the shot except that little thing here. Just forget about it. It looks nice, right? So, great. The noise, nobody ever complained about the noise, but trust me, when you zoom in, this is noisy as heck. But it's the shot. Not again seamless. A few years ago I was invited by Phase 1 to go to New York to introduce the 100 megapixel back. And one of the things they asked me, like, Frank, can you shoot against Gray Seamless? And I also wanted to shoot against Gray Seamless. But I saw the studio, and the studio was way more interesting. And I was just going like, oh, Gray Seamless, I don't know. And I wanted to do it safe. You know, if there's Gray Seamless, I can always take a great shot. Depending on how I feel. If I feel really bad, Gray Seamless can save me, because Gray Seamless, always great. But if I'm more creative, Gray Seamless actually pulls me back a little bit, because I want more. So at one point I said like, you know what, does he really have to be in front of the paper? Do you throw the paper back later? Do you throw the paper away? And they were going like, yeah, we throw the paper away. Okay, give me a knife. So what did we do? First we did this, the birth of a model. But this I wasn't really feeling it. You see that the model is already having fun? Do you see that face? Do you see the eyes? Do you see that sparkle in there? It wasn't there before. When she was standing in front of the paper, she was going like this. Yeah, I'm not a professional fashion model, right? But she was going like, hi, I'm a professional fashion model and I do this. And it looked great, but it wasn't really wow. As soon as I told her like this, look at those eyes, do you see that sparkle in there? She's already having fun. She's already anticipating about what's going on. There we go. That's awesome. Now, not every model can do this, but most models can if you just push them and put them in the right situation. Selfie camera of, I believe, 60,000 euros, so nice selfie camera. But why not do it like this? She was coming through the paper, strobe behind the paper, breaking through, holding the camera, and now you get a more commercial shot. Break the rules or break the paper. Use a torch or even your phones. Why not? Smartphone from the top down. Really nice light. A lot of people holding smartphones, just lighting the model. It doesn't care if the smartphone is in there. It looks nice. It looks weird. Let the model hold also a smartphone and cut all the other smartphones out. Because believe it or not, this was all lit by smartphones. Now some people will go like, that's a really expensive shot, Frank, with lighting. Yeah, probably. My smartphone is about 1,400 euros. I can buy 4 strobes of that money, but you know what I mean, right? You already have that smartphone, use it. and borrow smartphones from your friends, and you can light a scene. And that's what I want to point out. That magic doesn't have to cost mad money. What you have to do is be creative with what you have. So if you're with 10 friends in the forest and you want to take a picture, let everybody pick out their smartphones, turn on the flash, and there you go. The flashlight, of course. And just light your model. And it works with smartphones, not in the bright sun, but in the dark or in the shade. You get beautiful lighting. Don't worry about it. And creative light usage. Use lights that are there, that already are in the scene, so you don't have to pay for it. For example, bright sunlight in the back. Now, if I tell you I'm going to make my model black and I'm going to have the sun in the back, what do you think? It's not going to be interesting. But if I tell you that she has red hair, which really flames up, she has a little bit of bunny hairs, and she's going to stand up on her toes, and she's going to do this. That's when you start to put the magic in, or at least the jig, or the match, whatever you want. It's part of that magic. And then everything in the front, the little bar, the sun in the back, that's for me the complete magic in a shot. In this case, what do you think we used? Windows. Very, very simple. Just let the light fall through. And in this case, we didn't use windows, we used flags, but you can do that with the light that's there. The lights that's there, in this case, a flash bender for Rogue Expo Imaging, flash benders. They even have a Frank Doorhof version. Really great product. Why? Because you can be creative with the product. You can bend the light and create something that's not there. And that's what I love. I love to use light sources that are different. Light sources that are not the normal light source, because that's so boring. Everybody does it. Create something new. And as you can see here, you get these really weird patterns over there. How do we do this? Very simple. Hold your camera, take a strobe, hold it in front of your lens and shine it straight into the lens. Don't aim it towards the model, straight into the lens. And at that point you get this beautiful lens flare. You can even leave some dust on your lens. Awesome. You get those nice balls. Really like that. A little lap tube that our model is holding here. We all know ring lights, right? You put your lens through it and you get this beautiful round light quality, so you have no shadow. So you do have a shadow, but it's really round all the way around. In this case, put it on our model. That's the only light source used here, and as you can see, it creates something unique, something nice. Or you can do it that way. Don't put it on the highest setting, because those are really powerful. I remember when I started out with ring lights many years ago. Let me take a zip. I actually tested one out in the studio with a light meter, and I was smart. I wanted to know how fast, how much power came out of it, because I want to know how I'm treating my model. It was the very first time I used it. It was a 1200 watt ring light on a Ranger 1200 watts. So Hensel Porty is 1200 watts, the Ellingram Rangers are 1100 watts. So a very powerful strobe. I hold out my light meter, put it on full power. One advice, never do that. I closed my eyes, and for 1 hour I still had rings in my eyes. And my light meter said something like, ow. So if you use it so close to the model, please put it on the lowest setting possible, because even this emitted a lot of light. 2 LED panels on the sides. We use them for video. Why not use them in a photo shoot? The big LED panels we use during digital classroom. Just place it behind our model and besides our model. Choose it from a very weird angle. And you see that I'm using strobes from the side. We just squeeze them in there. So you do see the light from the panels, but you also see the strobes. Use lights that are in your studio as a prop. Why not? Fresnel is a beautiful light source, but also a beautiful light source to see. And at that point I was still shooting with Ellingram, as you see. We switched over to Hensel. They have beautiful modifiers, but these shots with the Fresnel, that's a Ellingram one. Use the camera. We all have maybe a point and shoot camera somewhere. It gives the model something to do. It makes you possible to create a story and an outline, and you just have beautiful shots. Now in this case, they also have, she also has a little strobe with a blue gel, and just aim it somewhere. It doesn't really matter where you aim it. Just experiment and see where it works best. Same here. And of course, when you can do blue, you can also do red or green. LED tubes. Again, we use them for video. Why not use them in photography? You can create something really unique and beautiful. But as you can see, I'm using it differently than what it was designed for. And that's the whole thing. Use it differently. By the way, if there are any questions in the chat, feel free to ask, because we are checking the chat. Okay, let's go for smoke. Smoke is difficult, and it's easy. It's a mood maker, it's a reflector, it's a diffuser. In other words, you never know what you're gonna get. It's like a box of chocolate. It's like life, right? You never know what you're gonna get. At one point you can be on top, and 5 minutes later you can be all the way down, and 3 days later you're up again with a vengeance. So in this case we're using a really nice setup with our opulent red backdrop, and of course we're using a chandelier, but somehow it didn't work. I was looking at it and I was going like, I don't know, it's too sterile. And that's actually where another part of the smoke comes in. It's also glue. It glues all the light together because it reflects, it diffuses, it transports the light. So you get a beautiful, beautiful combination when you use it together. As you can see here, beautiful patterns. And think about without the smoke. It's boring, right? And probably without the smoke you couldn't see the detail in the dress, because the detail in the dress is probably light that reflects from the back, those two walls next to each other, remember? Reflects back from the back and then aims at the dress of the model. So you don't need light in light, because then the smoke will actually start to appear, because, well, think about when you drive in the fog and you turn on your headlights, everything is white. Same thing with smoke in the studio. But if you have smoke in front of your model and no light hitting it from the front but from the back, that smoke will reflect back on your model's dress, and you have a little bit of a fill-in light. Really simple technique. Add a little bit of motion with smoke, also cool. As you can see, very, very simple setups, but the smoke is used as a sort of glue to get everything together. Now, what kind of smoke should you use? There are different kinds of smoke machines. You have oil-based, those start up immediately and they start pumping smoke, awesome. And you have water-based. Personally, I would always go for the water-based ones, because remember this, everything you put into the air also goes through your strobes. It circulates. With water-based, it's not really bad for your strobes, because when we breathe out and we breathe in, we also put in a lot of water into the air, and it already goes through your strobes. So a little bit more, a little bit less, no problem. Now, don't go dumping your strobes in the water. Don't take them under the shower. That's different water. We talk about the water molecules in the air. And the smoke machine does the same, maybe times 10. So don't worry about it. The strobes can handle that fine. Oil-based, and this is what somebody told me, there's always a little bit of residue of that oil. There's a chance that that's also in the smoke. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And over time that can hurt your strobes. So overall, I would always go for the water-based. And they're also the cheapest. And get two, by the way, because if they are overheated, and that's very normal, when they're cooled down, and that's very normal, you have to heat them up again, and that can take up to 5 minutes. And when you're outside, that can be incredibly long, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and they can pump a little bit of smoke and you have to go again. That's a main advantage of the oil-based. You don't have that problem. But just buy two. They're like 40 or 50 bucks on almost every site. Don't buy them from photography stores. Buy them from stage company stores, or maybe something for a kids party. It's for photography. We don't need a lot of smoke. We just need a nice smoke machine, and on Amazon you can buy them really cheap. Just go for the cheap ones. Master your shoot. Combine stuff, expression and cameras. See the difference? Combine also, for example, if you're shooting on a booth for Sony, try to go a little bit more down and get that Sony logo in, because people will love it. And the people from Sony will go like, ooh, that's interesting. Let's ask Frank again to do some shoots, because they also have pictures with Sony in. I always like to surprise my clients. So if my clients ask me to do a product shot of, for example, let's say a product shot of a phone, I can do it with a white backdrop. I can create amazing stuff with it. But what about if this is a Samsung Ultra 22, this is of course one that's designed for video and photography, like the Sony one, the Xperia series, they're also designed for photography, so I'm just testing them next to each other, and I still don't know which one wins, because I also really like the Xperia ones. This one, for example, has a night mode, which the Sony doesn't, so for this one I would probably, if I go a little bit more creative for my image shot, I will literally maybe take this out at night, put some little bit of smoke behind it, some color like blue from the night, and just put it in there, and you get a totally different shot. And maybe your client goes like, no, I like the white backdrop better. At least you gave him an alternative, and maybe next time he thinks about you when he needs something extreme. Remember that plastic stuff? This was a little bit later. Do you see that it's now already black because of the torch? Yep, same here. It's so fun what you can do with stuff that's so cheap. But here we're combining the lighting, the reflection, angle of incidence is angle of reflection. Use it in this case, because otherwise, if you don't bend it up, it will just disappear and people will go like, what's in front of her eyes? I see a little bit of a reflection. No, no, no. Make sure that the light hits it so you see all those outlines of the plastic wrapping stuff. Be creative with backdrops. For example, old curtains you have on your attic. Christmas wrapping paper that she's actually wearing. Or a lot of old wrapping paper. Close-ups. And maybe some dresses. Some old wedding dresses combined with some shears, the stuff that you hang in front of your windows. Some very old materials like cloth. We got some organza in there. We got some cushions in there. And some Christmas lighting. And Nadine was just building a little tent like a fortune teller. The weird thing is, if you would have stepped one step back, you would go like, ooh, that's a mess. It doesn't look nice. I don't even see what it's supposed to be. And then you close in and you go like, we call that the soap opera effect. If you zoom out too much, you see that it's the stage. If they push the doors too hard, you see the stage going like this. A normal house doesn't do that. Well, at least not in the Netherlands, because we have real houses with stone. Just kidding, guys. No, not about the stones. But, you know, when you go a little bit back, the magic just doesn't work. But when you close in, that's where you start imagining. And maybe you see something else in this. For me, this is a fortune teller. Maybe you see something completely different. This was shot during the SS Rotterdam for Sony. And Sony actually told me, please bring backdrops. I said, why? And I did bring backdrops. Please bring, because, Frank, it's a really, really boring room. You can't do anything in there. It's literally boring. So I thought, like, okay, I never saw a really boring room. Even trade show halls are interesting if you know where to find it. Corners, they're really nice. Or open up a door and just let them squeeze through. There's always something to find. There's always something that's interesting because it's different. And everything that's different is cool. In this case, I just love the curtains. Let's be honest. This is one shot that we did. Look at this. I had so much fun the whole day. I didn't use my backdrops. I was constantly shooting with those curtains. And Nadine was having a blast. And now something else. Combining to get your shot. One of the nicest things about photography is leading lines, but also symmetry. Now, maybe it's me, but somehow, always when I shoot something in symmetry, it goes wrong. There's always 1 or 2 pixels on the left or right that's weird. So at one point I just decided, you know what, so many people pointed it to me out, Frank, it's not really symmetric. And I was going like, yeah, now that, okay. So I thought, you know what, from now on I'm never going to do anything symmetric anymore. So I could have shot this very symmetric. No, I'm just going to go to the corner. And somehow I just like it way more. So I was always so trying to get everything in, like the leading lines up, make everything symmetric, make the shadow go. And at one point I go like, you know what, if I get so many remarks that it's not symmetric, forget about, just go to the sides and just shoot it up. And at one point you will see, actually when you look at the image, the leading lines are way stronger than if I would have made it straight on, because then it's a boring shot, it's normal. This is way more interesting, at least for me. I hope for you guys too. Wide angles. You should never use a wide angle for a model shoot. Why not? And this is the thing. Embrace the problems. We as people are very reluctant to problems. If we have a problem, we run away. We don't want to face the problems, right? I prefer to just go to bed, wake up the next day and the problem is gone. The reality is, it isn't. So you have to embrace it and make the best out of it. So if somebody does really bad to you guys, come back with a vengeance. Make sure that you win. That in photography means that if you have a challenge with, for example, your lighting, and the lighting doesn't really work for you, see it as a vengeance. You are going to control that lighting. That lighting is going to do what you want. If you have a wide angle and there's a distortion in there, use that distortion like you see here. Go all the way down, let the model put her foot up. This image is distorted like crazy, but does it look distorted? If I would have tried to mimic the effect away, like okay, let's just find the exact right angle that it doesn't distort, the image would have been much less interesting. Sorry, English is not my native tongue, so sometimes I mess up. But if you go all the way down, you embrace that distortion, you use it. In other words, you are beating that distortion and you are using it to your benefit. So the distortion wants to kill you, you're gonna use that distortion to kill that lens. And you get a killer shot, right? Come back with a vengeance. Make it better than it was. Embrace the problems that you have and solve it in your shots. In this case with a wide angle. Loom cubes, awesome stuff. Put it on a selfie stick and the model can move it around, or you can move it around your model and with one hand shoot. Great light source, I absolutely love them. If you don't know loom cubes, they're from a company called Loom Cube. Easy, right? And there is this little screw underneath and you can just put them on a selfie stick and just move them around. Or you can put them in your closet, or you can put them somewhere where there isn't a lot of room for example, a speed light. And they emit a lot of light. They do get a little bit hot, but they emit a lot of light. And for the price, it's a no-brainer. Just put 1 or 2 in your bag. One day you will love me for it, because it will save your shoot. Same here. Smaller model, really great grows. Put her in front of it and just use a lot of strobes to make it day to night. I always love these kinds of shots. Here, the sun in the back, the strobe in the front, shooting it in, but a little bit like a fill-in flash, so not overpowering the sun, but just giving it enough to make the model stand out. And at this point my battery died, so I didn't have any strobe power left. And because outside it was so sunny, I couldn't take any shots anymore. Place the model inside the car, use the windows, and we turned the car a little bit around, so the sun was actually now hitting it from another angle. And you can still create great shots. So don't, and this is what I mean, if something goes wrong, embrace it and become stronger. Because as a photographer, if you learn how to solve your problems, you can do the same thing with lighting that does work. Because you can solve something that's wrong, imagine what you can do with something that works. That's the magic, right? Same here, sometimes you have a really messy studio. Clean it up, make it clean. That's very frustrating. Look at those old images, like for example Richard Avedon or Helmut Newton. Sometimes you even see the rolls of paper on the floor. And we all go like, oh, that's art, that's amazing. But when we look at our own shots, oh, there's a little bit of a dark corner. Let's close that down. Oh, there's a little... No, embrace that chaos. Make something out of it. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a great shot, but at least everything is in there. And I love that round thing with the reflector. So you see that we're using an Hansel beauty dish. You're seeing all that stuff. And that little chair in the back. People that come to our studio immediately go, oh, that's that chair. Oh, that's that reflector. Oh, I love it. Embrace that chaos. You don't have to clean it up every time. Too clean can be nice, but most of all make it natural. Because in real life, it looks like that. So why clean it up? Not all the time, by the way. These are just examples, right? Don't do this for your clients, because I don't think a lot of clients will really take these shots. But the cool thing is, if you can do something this extreme, you can also do it a little bit less. And the more extreme you are used to doing, the easier it gets to do it normal. I hope that makes sense. Same here. I actually like this one a little bit better, to be honest. Now, of course we want to create motion, we want to create something really, really cool, but sometimes you are left with something. So if you want to create motion and it doesn't work, what do you do? Well, in this case we didn't want to have motion in the shot, but we wanted to have the landing lights of the plane in the shot, because I really had that idea. But at that point it started to rain, and I'm something like, I'm out there, we just keep shooting, right? But that landing light, in my mind, I saw this shot and we tried it from the front. This was during a workshop with a lot of light, day to night, and the plane looks great. But there was this big gaping hole on the bottom with the wheel. I just looked at it, I don't like this. The nice thing is, we had one extra portie with us. We put it there, put the strobe on the wheel, where absolutely the light is not there, but we put the strobe there. I don't know where the light is, right? So when I see this, I believe it, because I don't know where it really is. So we put the light there, and somehow, because the light was there, you saw all the raindrops. So it was immediately going from, okay, when we light it from the front, I didn't see a lot of those raindrops. But when we started lighting it from the back, that whole image just came together and was like, literally a photo wow, for me. Again, it's very personal, right? Just listen to the techniques, take out of it what you want. If you don't like the shots, no problem at all, use the techniques. This was inside, huge problem, no room, no space. I was with my back against the wall, literally, and I did want to shoot that plane. I hated all the lights in the building, and I couldn't crop it out, and at that time, embrace it. So I went from a 24-70 to a 12-24. I asked Nadine, our model in this case, put your foot on, and you remember, embrace the distortion. So we used a 12mm, shut it up, and it's not a great shot. I want to tell you right away, this is maybe the weakest shot in the whole seminar for me. But you see that because I embrace that distortion, you don't see that the model's head is really small. Because if I would have said to my model, okay, stand straight, she would have looked really weird, because then everything would be weird and out of proportions. But by going down, shooting up with the 12mm, our viewer immediately goes like, ooh, he's leading in. And at that time, it doesn't look like distortion, it looks like, what kind of lens did you use? I also want that. And I said, do you have a 12mm? Yeah, I never use it. That's the one. And I go like, no, that distorts. I said, okay, look at the shot. And they go like, huh. Have to find the 12mm. And then a week later they call me like, oh man, I'm gonna use the 12mm all the time. And I go like, don't do that, because then the magic is really quickly gone. Use it sometimes sporadically, and boom, you have that photo. Wow. Use it all the time, and you go like, yeah, there you have another one. So be careful with what you do. It's a fine balance, but trust me, just embrace that distortion. It's so awesome. Same here inside the flight simulator, also with the 12mm, and that's why she's holding her hand like this, because otherwise, there you go, it would look weird. Here we went a little bit over the top, but you see that by using that shutter speed, where we talked about before, you know, remember, combining strobes and ambient light, this was with a faster shutter speed, so less ambient light became even darker. And here the combination red and that plane. And for me, red, I also love the painter Caravaggio, always those red accents in there. I just love that stuff. So in this case, this is really one of my favorite shots from the whole plane series. Although I also like this, you see every time we use something else. And in this case also the wide angle, but also a lower angle. And they all have something that I find interesting, but they all could have been so boring. They also could have been so much more interesting, but do realize that 99% of the images you see I shoot during workshops. So all these images I'm teaching the students. I have to make sure that I make mistakes, because if I don't make mistakes I can't show you how you do it differently. And then we still end up with images like this. So it's not that hard. That's why I always tell people, if you look at my portfolio and you go, I can never do that. Realize that at that time I have so much going on my head. I have 10 students looking over my back. I have a camera that I have to control. I have to make sure that I don't damage anything. And I have to speak, I have to teach. And still you can create images. Photography isn't that hard if you know the tricks. And the trick is to get your model at ease and just make sure that you make the best out of your situations. With props, with wide angles, with smoke, with lighting and whatnot more. Angles, master your shoots. Straight on. I like it. I like the reflection in the back. Angle of incidence is angle of reflection. You can place it wherever you want. That's one of the cool things about it. This one. I personally like the previous one. But some people love this one. That's okay. But also here, straight on. Yeah, it's okay. It's not something where I go like, wow. I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me at all. And still a lot of people go like, look at the leading lines. You go like, yeah, which leading lines? It blocks everything. Now look at that. That's different, right? Different leading line. For me more interesting. But what if I go on the floor with that wide angle? So maybe you find the first one the best. Maybe you find the last one the best. The cool thing is, when I shoot for a client, or for an instructional video, or a tutorial, whatever, I have all these shots, and you can literally make them like this, and you're done. Now you can give your client a really, really difficult choice. Which one do you like best? And they always like one best. That's the cool thing for you guys, right? They always like one the best. But if you deliver everything the same image, and they don't like that look, they go like, I don't like that one, I don't like that, and you lose your clients. With me, they go like, interesting. Ooh, I like, that's even better. So they always have something completely different to choose from. And when I know my client and I know that somehow he has this weak spot for wide angles, next time I will just give a little bit more attention to the wide angles. And he will go like, ooh, you know what I like, right? And I'm going like, yeah. So that's why they hire me the next time again. So put everything in there what you know. Angles here, the same thing. I wanted that majestic. This is from one of the Kelby 1 videos. I wanted majestic look in there. Somebody says I was there on set. That's absolutely correct, Peter. You were there. So, hero stance. Low angle, wide angle, shooting up. And the sun behind her. That's something I always try to do. Get the sun here. By the way, this was shot, this is really interesting. Some people ask me like, Frank, I see that there's a narrow depth of field. I know that you're shooting with studio strobes outside. I know that the X-Sync is 125. How did you do this? Now, there's a filter company out there called KNF Concept, and they have the black mist filter, which I love to use for lens flares, but they also have a filter, and it's called a variable ND filter in 10 stops. What I did is I metered the light, and the light came out, let's say f16. And that's the light. But then you have depth of field from here to Tokyo. It's not what I wanted for this shot. I wanted that blurry effect. So what I did is I put an ND filter in front, and I just clicked it down until I was at 2.8. Now, what you will get with an ND filter when you go that extreme is that you also get darker corners. Now, some people go like, ooh, darker corners, I don't want it. For fashion photography, we already put vignetting in there. So, isn't it just awesome that you can now do it on the set with your lens? Just angle it correctly, and you will see that darker corners. Angle it differently, the darker corners are gone, because it's a sort of a polarizing effect. There's so much creativity, guys, out there. Just use your stuff, and if something goes wrong, like if you see the darker corners, don't go like, oh, crap lens or crap filter. No, it's creative. Use it that way. And if you don't like it, just turn it one further and the dark corners will be gone. For me, I just kept turning it until it was really dark and I was going like, ooh, love it, and just do it. And I even enhanced it in Lightroom, imagine that. Same here. Okay. Angles. High angle, shooting down, gives you a little bit more of somebody smaller. Low angle shooting up gives you a little bit of a hero stance. In this case, we used a lot of chairs in our studio and we just put them together, put smoke behind it, and in this case I just chose almost straight on. I don't know why. We tried low, we tried high, and straight on just works great. So don't always go for low or high, also shoot in the middle. And that's what I meant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 angles, and you have a great choice. So your client can choose, and your client maybe goes like, oh, I like that hero stance, or no, I like the other one. As long as you give him the choice, your client will hire you back. And can you add the brand name of the filters in the chat? Yes, that's KNF Concept. So KNF. And I have a really good message for all you guys in the Netherlands. Starting probably next week, we are able to sell you guys the black mist filters and the ND filters, the variable ND filters. We made a deal with KNF that we can distribute their filters in the Netherlands. So we are now importing them. It will be a week before they're in, because the black mist filter, it wasn't really sold in the Netherlands except online. So we're now working together with the guy online, of course. And that filter is just so awesome, and I wanted everybody to be able to buy the filter and not buy it on Amazon because, well, let's keep it in the Netherlands, of course, or in your own country, but whatever. And we just decided, you know what, we're gonna reach out to KNF and just ask them like, hey, can we sell the filters? And we're gonna sell a lot of them, probably, because it's an awesome filter. So KNF Concept, and in this case it was the variable ND filter, but also check out the black mist ones. They're awesome. Little bit of commercial stock in between. Special effect lenses. Of course, the black mist filters, the ND filters, but also the lenses can be different. Now look at something like this. This is the black mist. You see that weird lens flare in there. It's not that aggressive lens flare, because you can do something like this with a really aggressive lens flare, but I like that really soft one that you got from the old lenses. Like, the old lenses were razor sharp, but as soon as they saw light, they went like, ooh, light, and they went all flary on you. Very, very bad. Very, very cool. So in that case, use a filter like that and just blur it out. Now if you go like, oh Frank, I would love it, but I don't have the money for a filter. Ask your wife or your mom for pantyhose. Cut it up, put it in front of your lens. It's not exactly the same effect, but it comes very, very close. If you go like, yeah, I'm not gonna wear pantyhose, get an old UV filter and put some stuff on it. Now I got the name again. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on. Fat, grease, put some grease on it, and you will, probably not grease, what you put on your feet, right, in the winter or in your hands, put that on the filter, make out the center part so the model is nice and sharp and the edges will be beautiful. Similar effect, but different. Same here, I just love that filter. It's literally constantly on my lens. Same here. And before that I did do lens flares, and when you look at my portfolio you see that I did a lot of lens flares before, but they were always harsh. And somehow I liked it harsh, but there was always this nagging mind in my fun. The lens flare is drawing so much attention. I do like it, but it's like, really like that DVD from Shrek, you know, where Donkey goes like, pick me, and I just wanted to go Donkey a little bit like, if you want, pick me, right? Not that jumping up. And the lens flare were just a little bit too obnoxious, and by using that filter, it just blurs out that lens flare, makes it beautiful. See how enthusiastic I am? Sorry for that, guys. And that's how I am, I just love my work. Same here, a lot of that lens flares in there. And this is all specialty lenses. And the cool part is, this is actually the weird thing, those lenses aren't expensive. It's actually the cheapest lenses you can buy, the cheapest junk you can buy. Gets you the greatest images in this. This is one of the reasons I'm actually using an M42 converter on my camera to use that really old crappy lenses, because don't ever think those lenses aren't sharp. Those lenses are just as sharp as modern lenses, maybe a little bit less, but they're really, really sharp, especially when you get Zeiss Jena. Imagine Zeiss, you know the name, right? They also have M42 lenses. Sometimes you buy them on a flea market for 5 to 10 euros and they tell you also take the rest of the junk, and you get a bag with another 4 lenses and a camera and film. And you go like, for 10 euros? Yeah, take that crap. And you go like, wow, and I have 4 or 5 lenses. And those lenses, most aren't that good. If you want to buy something, buy the Zebras. They are metal and black, and mostly they are Zeiss by Jena, or they're, for example, only Jena, I believe, and you have Takamura, and those we call the Zebra lenses. And if you find one like that, just look through it. If there's no fungus in there, get one of those lenses for 5 or 10 euros, maybe 20 euros. Put it on your camera, and trust me, you will have razor sharp images, but the lens flare is literally to die for. If you want it on a modern lens, you have to get something like a black mist filter, for the very simple reason the modern lenses have a special coating, and that coating prevents lens flare. Everything else is just as sharp, but it's that coating. And I absolutely love that coating, but I hate it. That's why we use that extra filter on it, to keep using that fast lens, that fast glass from Sony, the G Masters, where we literally put that lens in front of it. And you remember, right? Everything you put in front of your lens, that's the quality of your lens. So don't put 5 euro filters in front of your lens, use the right ones. This is without, look at the difference. Outside, same lens, or same filter, sorry. And this is without, you see the difference? I don't like it. It's a little bit too harsh. This is a Lens Baby. Now, one of the things with Lens Baby is they are really prone to lens flare. It's like if they see light, they're like vampires. They immediately start to burn and scream, and they run away, and everything is just blurred out. So at one point I thought, like, you know what, how do we prevent lens flares? Well, lens flare you prevent with a sun hood. In this case, a sun hood doesn't work for the very simple reason that it's just way too much. But those lenses are designed to do that. But they're not designed to get so much light from the back, like I did here. So how did I get that light beam in there? I did the Mr. Spock technique. So if the light is coming from that way, and you have a lot of lens flare, hold your hand beside your lens. And you will find out that the lens flare is completely gone, because you're blocking off the light. So it doesn't hit the lens, can't register. So in other words, you don't see it. And now do this. Of course, keep it like that, but that's the only thing I did. Nothing more. And at that point, this part does get lens flare. You just move it up and down until you see what you like. That's it. It isn't magic, but it looks like magic. And that's the thing. That's what I wanted to tell you guys. It doesn't have to be difficult. It's often the most easiest stuff that works, because the difficult stuff is difficult to repeat. It's difficult to keep your mind with. So Always think when you see something really spectacular, don't think about how hard it is, think about how simple it is. Because those photographers, including me, we don't want to use difficult techniques. We want to use something on a stage that works every single time. I have to nail it every single time, because if I fail, people will look like, I sometimes have 3,000 people in a room and they go like, he can't do it. And then I have to do it 4 or 5 times and go like, yeah. No, you have to do techniques that work immediately. So always look at an image, and if you can't figure it out, you're probably overthinking it. Just analyze the image, and very quickly you will see, oh, hey, wait a minute. Probably you didn't figure that one out. That one I have to tell you, because this, I don't know, I think I never saw something like this before, but hey, work together, that's the most important thing. Now, I'm somebody that doesn't have a really big ego, maybe a little bit too small actually, so I'm always listening to people and go like, okay, what one, I'm very insecure, believe it or not. I'm an incredibly insecure person, so when I take a shot, I'm always checking with my students, do you like it? And that's actually an honest question, because if a student says no, I go like, okay, so make it better. And if you work together, you will hear so much tips, even from people that don't know anything about photography. They see stuff that other people don't see. Like for example, Emmeloord. Emmeloord doesn't know anything about photography. She doesn't want to know anything. She shoots with her phone and she gets great images. And she knows more than she thinks. But often when I show her an image, or she comes to me like, hey Frank, I have this image on Facebook. I don't like it. What's wrong? 99% of the cases it's cropping. 99% of the cases it's composition, so cropping. Now at times, Emmeloord actually comes to me and she goes like, Frank, I don't like this shot. What if I do it like this? I go like, that's it. So she told me like, I thought it was so difficult. I always looked at those shots and go like, what the heck, why don't I like this? Now that you told me, and I told her literally like, okay, on your phone, take your hand, 2 hands, put it on your phone and just start moving it until you see what you like. And she said, I always like it like this, cutting off the top of the head. She could be family for me, right? Because I always cut off the top of the heads. And unless I'm shooting for a client, then I leave a little bit of room on the top, because you can always crop, but you can't put it back up together. So, for example, if we shoot for VB Suyadi, we actually have a lot of space on his top, for the very simple reason you can clone this bigger, very, very easily in Photoshop. But if they want to have a poster, it looks really weird if his head is cut off. And if they want to cut his head off, the part, of course, they don't. You know what I mean. They can always do it in post. So when you shoot for a client, I highly advise you to not cut off. Keep a little bit of space, and always a little bit, so not too close, but make sure that there's a little bit of meat that people can build on. But then when you show the images, and this is what I highly recommend, show a cropped version. So have the original one and show the cropped version. In most cases, tell your client, if you're going to use it for a publication, use the cropped version, please. If you use it for a poster and you have more meat, use the other one, right? And a client will always go like, I like the cropped one better. I don't know why, but I do. And I'm going to tell you why. A friend of mine, Dave Black, actually looked at one of my shots, and it was from a motocrosser. I love that shot. I had it totally nailed. Everything was speedy. You saw the dust going up and down. It was an amazing shot. The only problem was the motorbiker was completely in the picture. And Dave looked at it and he said, Frank, I like the shot, but it's not taking me. It's not like doing it for me. He took out his phone and he said, give me the shot. So I gave him the shot, and then he started cropping it. He started cropping the top off, but also part of the motorcycle on the bottom. And he said, look at this. And I was going like, whoa, that's awesome. And immediately just a light bulb went off. I know. Immediately a light bulb went off. You know what he did? He went from a picture I took from a long distance with a motocrosser that was literally in the frame, to a picture that I took with a 400mm, but because the motocrosser was totally cropped off, it looked like he was so close to me that he almost hit me. And that's the magic in the story. That's the magic in that shot. So work together, listen to other people. Let people do weird stuff, like Nadine. She's amazing with this kind of stuff. With the hair, look at this. One branch and all that hair on the side. Love it. In this case also, hair. Big hair. Work together with your stylist. Work together with people that really know hair. And let's be honest, if you go to your local hairdresser, they always want nice shots, right? They always need images. You need models. You need a stylist. So don't ask them if they want to work for you. You just go there, you browse through the magazines, and you go like, oh, I like those shots. And your hairdresser will go like, oh, I would love shots like this. And you just go like, I can do that. And your hairdresser will go like, really? And you go like, yeah, but don't overdo it, of course. If feel confident, if you know you can do it, just do it like that. And you go like, yeah, sure. You know what? Now, normally I don't do it for free, but hey, we know each other now for how long? 5, 6 years? Yeah, yeah. You always do my hair, and I love it. Let's make a deal. I will shoot for you those images. You arrange the models, you do the hair, and in exchange, I just cut my hair for a year. And they will go like, and you can give me images like that? Sure. And you get your stylist for free, you get your model for free, and it's a win-win situation. It's not mean, because they love those shots, and you get a free haircut, but you also get a free photo shoot. And the cool thing is, if you have those images in your portfolio, other people will hire you for those images. So you can work with people that are normally way out of your price range by just offering to do it for free. And at that point, it's a win-win situation. We call that TFP, time for print. I'm not a big advocate for it, but in those cases, if you have a really good team and everybody is on the same level, it can work like a charm. So get a good hairdresser, good photographer together, and you're there, it's golden. As you can see here. These are all, by the way, these are not workshops images, these were shot, I would have loved to do this with, for example, high fashion models. These were clients from the hairdresser, and these were shot for their summer and winter collection. So all these shots were just clients, and beautiful clients, by the way. But I think when we would have used real models, and some of these are real models, by the way, but you see the difference, I think, when you look at the images. The real models will have a little bit of a different expression, and it's not a lot. I think when a lot of people look at these shots, they go like, Frank, why? Why are you negative? And just get me right, I'm not negative about it. I just say, this is magie. The C would have been in there if the model had just a little bit of that spark. You remember the model that looked through the seamless? You saw those eyes just lighting up? That's what I miss a little bit in the models that are clients, but still look at those shots. Because they wanted something extreme, I said, make it all black. But when you do all black, you have to do all white, right? This is a disaster, 2 meter. Because everything was translucent, so we used a spot meter to get exactly all the details in. So I wanted to blow out, but not completely. I still want details in there. Without a light meter, forget about it. If you want 1/10 of an f-stop off, this doesn't work. So light meters, very, very important. And tell your model to stay close, because if they move a little bit forward or backwards, yeah, you're in trouble. Okay, we're almost done. Just some images. When it clicks, the final part. When everything clicks together, then you get great shots. For example, in this case, outside, really nasty wall. But what I used, do you see those lines? We were under a bridge, and these are actually the bridge pillars. The sun was hitting it. I looked at it. Claudia, please stand there. We used a strobe on one side, and all those lines were was just beautiful at that location. And somehow it just works. It isn't a real interesting shot. It isn't really weird. But somehow for me, when I look at the shot, I go, wow, I like it. Her expression, the lines in the backdrop, it just all fits together. But it's very, very subtle. And I don't like subtle that much. So let's go a little bit more extreme. Here I'm using exactly the same technique. We're using a room divider, a lot of smoke, and a strobe behind it with a strong, harsh reflector all the way in the back. I believe we used an Hensel Expert for this with a 14-inch reflector. So the 14-inch reflector is a really big one. Push it all the way to the back, shine through the room divider, and then you get those beautiful lines in the smoke. And let's be honest, lines in smoke is just absolutely awesome. Sometimes they call them God beams if you see them in the air. And I totally agree. It looks like the miracle and the magic of nature. And if you can promote that or can emulate that a little bit in your studio, you get awesome shots. Expression, building a character, a little bit of play with your character. But also here, combine everything together. I believe these are 20 dresses or something she took with her. She came with her car, she opened up the car, and it was a big dress explosion. And when she went back, we really have to help her close all the car doors and just push the dresses in while she was sitting there, because if she wasn't sitting there, she couldn't drive. I'm literally overreacting now a little bit, but you know what I mean, right? A little bit of humor. But beautiful. And the same thing here. You already saw this shot. everything together. It doesn't look like, oh sorry, it looks like $1,000,000 for me, but in essence they're all paper bags and some gas masks. So it doesn't have to be expensive, but it comes together with creativity. This shot, why this one as one of the last shots? When I shot this was a few years ago on professional imaging, on the live stage image, and for the love of it, I don't even remember I took the shot. I don't even remember I retouched it on stage. I had 39.8 degrees fever. And a week said, if you go 1/10 higher, I'm going to pull you off the stage. And I just wanted to do it because I didn't want to let people down. I got a lot of medication from the hospital. I was on the stage and we took shots like this. Now you might think like, hey Frank, now you're just pulling yourself up. No, listen to the story. You remember that I said I didn't remember anything. The thing is, I have people around me that do the workshops, that know the lighting setups. And this just proves that even you can do this. Because I didn't set this up. I was so sick that I literally told Chaim, a very dear friend of mine, and I believe Bart was there, and I believe one other. And I just told them, like, you know what I normally do with the lighting? I want to keep it really simple today. Just set up something. And if the story is right, we'll just figure it out. They set this up. And Nadine had this beautiful styling. And I believe that Enoweek said, Chaim, use some smoke. Frank will love that. And they just put some smoke in it. And I remember taking the shots, but I don't even remember the rest. And there was this retouching station on because I also had to retouch it. And I was just sitting there just doing my retouching stuff. And probably at that time I did realize what I was doing. After that we went home and I believe I was a week in bed. And I woke up after a week, looked at the images and was going like, did I do that? This is a team. And the team can help you out. So imagine if you have a team like that and you are 100% healthy. Imagine how great the images can be if you just listen to other people and build something together. And that's the most important thing. Build it together. Don't be an egocentric photographer like, hey, it's my set. Just look at a TV show called Double Exposure. You will see what I mean. That's a very toxic working experience, but they're very famous. But it's so toxic and it doesn't work, and you see it in the images. If they would have been less aggressive towards each other, because they are literally fighting all the time, they could have created such beautiful work. So listen to the people that are there and trust them. In this case, it was a live show. I could have cancelled. I just trusted the team and they set it up beautiful. And look at the results. It's just, the weird thing is, it's one of my favorite shots. And one of the shots I can't actually take any credit for because it was my team that set it up. I just pressed the shutter. So, yeah. Listen to people and work together. Same here. The students did this. The only thing I did is set up the lighting. So this is my shot, 100%. The students did all the styling. The students determined like, hey, we want to do red. I said, okay, I love it. Of course. And I said, okay, let's add a little bit of smoke. And then one of the students said, okay, make the tail a little bit longer. And then Nadine said, okay, just use some chairs over there. Manon was going like, okay, give me a... So everything, it was such a beautiful experience that everybody got their creative impact. So that's the magic. Listen to people because 4 knows way more than 1. And even if 4 are not as good as you, you're at least 10% better with 3 other people, right? Okay. So, Learning with Frank, we have a website called frankdoorhof.com, of course, and our YouTube channel. Now, we do a lot of tutorials, we do a lot of instructional videos, and we do a lot of webinars. Now, if you like this, please go to PhotoWhoa and just find the videos on the Frank Doorhof and then just have a lot of fun with them. And especially the Light of the Old Masters. I think that's one of the videos that a lot of people ask for. It's a little bit technical with flags and shadow transfers and whatnot more. It's a really, really intense video. But you guys asked for it and we created it. And I have to be honest, it sells a lot because people love to do a little bit more than just the standard lighting setups. So, thank you so very much for watching, guys. And PhotoWhoa, thank you so much for inviting me to do this webinar. I hope you guys liked it. I would love some comments below about your experiences with photography. And for now, I would just say stay safe in these very, very crazy times. and make sure that you stay creative. And if you have any questions, leave them on YouTube and I will answer them within an hour. If you watch this later, don't worry, we monitor YouTube channel almost 3-4 times a day. If there are any questions, I will answer them personally for you guys. Thank you so very much for watching, guys, and see you again next time. And check out PhotoWhoa. We leave the links below. Bye, guys.